So I'm Greg Henderson from Unofficial Use Only. This is
Liam from Jeep Chic TV.
And we're going to show you in a brief segment how to take an old gas tank skid plate and turn it into a new one with a few tools. Yeah.
All right.
Before Greg shows us how to create a skid plate for our gas tank, we need to talk about why I need a skid plate for my gas tank. This video is part 3 of a 3-part series where I am repairing and replacing large sections of my frame. Part of that is the gas tank skid plate. Now let's go back to my garage where I make the discovery that the skid plate I currently have is just not going to cut it. This is the part where I'm really hoping I don't regret this. So we have a 2-inch body lift on the Jeep right now. I'm lowering that to a 1-inch body lift. And I know that with the 2-inch body lift, there were 2 inches of extra space between the frame and the body. And you can see here that the gas tank doesn't really extend higher than the frame. So the idea here is if the body is off the frame by 2 inches, there's 2 inches of space. This gas tank could go up theoretically, or in my case, 1 inch now. So I'm going to take this gas tank and I'm going to lift it 1 inch just to get the skid plate out of the rocks that much more. Now to do this, we are going to attempt to cut the skid plate. And actually we're going to do 3/4 of an inch just to play it safe. But we're going to cut out 3/4 of an inch and then lower the flange down. We'll do the same on the other side. And then we have to cut out this whole top hat right here that I had just painted, and figure something else out after that. Provides a lot of strength to the Jeep, so we'll probably lift it up and put some steel in there, but we're going to tackle that when we get there. This is going to be a pretty interesting one, to say the least. Gas tank's right there, skid plate's right there. Alright team, let's review what we did here. Here's my advice. If you have an old gas tank and the skid plate doesn't have obvious holes in it from the top, my advice is leave it alone. Don't even touch it. Now, if you're doing what I'm doing, maybe leave a lot of it alone, but you know where you're going to cut it. So what happened was I decided to clean out all of the 27 years of dirt that has, I don't know, amassed under the gas tank on the skid plate. So there's a gas tank, and it all just under here just kept packing in and in and in. Every available space was full of dirt and grime. And I had pieces like this. And what's really cool, look at how shiny that is. Anyway, that's neither here nor there. Also, look at how much metal is a part of that chunk. Here's another good one. Look at how thick that is. All of that is some sort of shiny, sparkly dirt mixed with metal, corrosion, who knows what. When you take all of that out, you reduce the strength of your skid plate by quite a lot. Actually, honestly, that's probably like a really good cushion for impact. Also, you expose things that you didn't want to find. So now I'm going to have to go through and either repair my skid plate or trash it and buy an entire new one. And that is why you don't clean these out unless you're doing something really crazy or you're willing to replace it. Because now I have a pile of dirt, another pile of dirt, and a skid plate that I just no longer feel comfortable with because I'm aware of the situation. So obviously the best choice is to replace the skid plate. But if you don't have the money to do that, don't touch it. Just don't touch it. It's fine. Leave it alone. Don't touch it. Unless obviously like rusted through, it's about to fall out, replace it immediately. But if it's not like that, And it's kind of like this one where it was fine until I dug into it. Just don't worry about it. There you go. That's your PSA. Now I got to figure out what to do with this one. But first, a photo shoot.
I'm Greg Henderson from Unofficial
You should recognize
Welding.
these guys from the intro.
Liam from TV.
We're going to show you in a brief segment how to take an old gas tank skid plate and turn it into a new one with a few tools.
Okay, so now we've made it all the way back to pretty much where we started at Unofficial Use Only, where Greg's going to show us how to build a new gas tank completely from scratch. The first step is fairly obvious, but probably the most important. We're just measuring the entire gas tank, figuring out where every hole, where every bend, where every crease, anything that we need to replicate, we are figuring out where that lives prior to cutting any metal. You can see that we're taking extra care to check and double check. As they say, measure twice, cut once. It's a cliche, but it is so very true. We just keep on measuring. You can see in here that in some spots we're making multiple parallel lines. That's so we can make that big radius. Greg has a brake that we're going to put this on, and the brake doesn't make these giant radii. You actually have to do smaller bends one after the other.
So that's the basis of kind of marking it up before we start cutting and bending. With this, you've got a couple different ways that you can do it. We can use the plasma cutter, which leaves an end you have to clean up, or you can use the circular saw. Which choose you?
Boom. Remember the break I mentioned before? This is that. How would you finesse this into the right shape?
Brute force.
Jumping on it?
Well, you can try. I mean, this is pretty solid. We just want to open this bend up.
Right.
You know, I don't weigh enough for this. Well, sometimes you just do that. Right over there.
Okay.
Lift your hands.
All right.
Put your toes on it.
Okay. That's team building if I ever saw it.
Flip it over, see if it's more angular. Oh yeah, certainly is.
So at this point, we made this extra piece so it's the same size, right?
Ish.
And then we're going to weld it on. And you're using this other piece of metal as like a clamp to keep them all straight, I assume?
Yeah, to kind of bridge it so that this plane and this plane are the same. So if they're riding on that, then they'll sit pretty.
So it's something like this. Would we tack it in down here and then beat this into submission?
Well, yeah, we'll put a couple here, then we'll loosen it. We'll get this one even. We'll put one here, and then we'll work our way up.
Okay. smart. I'm bad at this.
You want to hold tight to that.
Yeah.
So I'm not dragging this way, I'm dragging so that
Kinda
I'm
towards
keeping
it.
friction.
Yeah. I at least stopped while I was behind, so I didn't screw it up too bad.
Do a practice drag. No, hold it straight up and down. Yeah. Sorry. You're not straight up and down.
What?
There you go. Look at real.
Oh, okay.
Straight up and down.
The handle's at a slight angle, I got you. Yeah? Yeah, okay.
So now after all that, you've learned how to take some scrap steel, a couple tools, a brake, which that's a at-home built brake from Swag Off-Road, and build yourself something useful instead of spending, what was the new one of these?
A new one of these with the stock thickness is over $300.
So for $40 in scrap steel and some tools, you built your own.
Yeah. And something equivalent to this they do make them. You can buy upgradable skid plates and whatnot, and those are in the $500 range.
Yeah, and this is, it's only 1/8 inch plate. We didn't go, I've got some 3/16 and some quarter, but again, this was scrap steel and still far thicker than the factory original, so should work out pretty well.
Yep. Gas tank is inside the skid plate, and the skid plate is in place, but we'll see here that we got a gap. Now, we knew this would happen because in this case, we are raising the gas tank up 1 inch. That's been planned from the very beginning. But this gap is a little bit bigger than 1 inch. And, well, the gap, first of all, is because of this plate right here. They contact, the gas tank and the frame contact each other right here. So we know we're going to have to cut this off and raise it or do something similar. But we have more than 1 inch. And the reason why is there's a bulge on the bottom of the gas tank for the sump. We do not have that on our new skid plate that we created. I'll show you that bulge really quick. Now, I do want to mention that if you are doing this just to replace a skid plate, you will probably get away with not including the bulge. It's going to add a lot of work to this project, but because I'm minimizing the space as much as possible, it's starting to come into play. This is, I want to say, 3/8 of an inch deep, maybe. It's significant enough, and you can see here that there's just that little bit of a bulge. And that's for the sump. So we're going to have to do that on ours because otherwise it's just not going to come together. So we're making everything so tight. All right, we have the pocket put in here. I'll show you how I did it. We cut out just a square, and then we took the piece that we cut out, and I just set it offset. I got a piece of 1/8 inch steel, and I just shoved it in there, set that on top, and tacked it in with this as my spacer, and then I welded across that gap, which kind of sucked, but oh well. And so you can see here, this is all weld through here. That's why it's not super pretty, because some places it wanted to push through, other places it didn't. But I got a nice pocket here, and then I ground off any sharp corners, because this is going to be rubbing against your plastic gas tank. So here, you can see there's that weld all the way around. I just filled it with weld, and that's how I made that spacer. And then again, I came through here with the grinder and just took off any sharp pieces, because I don't like cutting myself on my own Jeep parts. So there you go, that should fit a lot better now. Alright, now we're talking. So we got this guy in here. We're able to clamp it all the way flush. I mean, we got a little bit of metal that's going to have to deform on installation, but that's to be expected. And we cut this tab off, and you can see that that was necessary for this to fit in here, but I kind of like the structure this provided. So we're going to put it back on, but we're going to do so with a bit of a spacer. So you can see that is not bad at all. We're doing really good. So maybe that's, I don't know, 1/4 inch. Maybe we'll go like a 1/2 inch up. We know we have a whole inch that we can go up. I don't know if we're going to go up that far, but that's what we got. So maybe we'll go up 1/2 inch, give us some nice space in here to hang out. It's going to sit right on top of here. It's going to be great. We don't really want these rubbing. I will mention that. But really close to each other, perfectly fine. Love it. Okay, as promised, it's been raised. This is a 1/2 inch up. You can see I got an air gap here. It's just because I don't have a whole lot of steel. Don't want to do a whole lot of welding. So I've got one here, and I've got one there, and one on the other end. And I'm relatively proud of that weld, in all honesty. So I'll show it off right now. I think it looks pretty good. And yeah, whole thing went together real nice and simple. So now we've got space for that raised gas tank, and we've maintained at least a good amount of the structure that this was providing before. And this is the last thing you're going to want to do. So this right here is a heat shield. And if your skid plate's anything like mine, your heat shield might be in good enough shape to reuse. So all this is going to do is protect the plastic gas tank from the hot exhaust if your exhaust is running through this area like it does in the factory position. It previously was spot welded here and there, and I chose to run a bead all the way across because I don't want water getting in between the two. Then you can see here I just did 1 and 2 little tacks because a lot of this is kind of nasty and welding is going to be pretty gross. But we just tacked down the 2 ends here, and this guy, normally he is going to be right here. This fit a little bit better going to the outside. So there he is like that. And I just did a couple quick welds right in here to hold that in place. Nothing real crazy. And then you'll probably get another one out here. And that's it. Then your skid plate is done. And you can install it. And you can bash it into things. And it's going to be great. If you're tearing apart your Jeep and you don't have any money, like the situation I'm in, finding out that you have to replace your gas tank skid plate can be a pretty costly thing. So, like I said, you might as well just leave it alone. But of course, obviously, if there's a safety concern, take care of it. And make sure to subscribe to this channel because we do have a lot of really good content where we go through all sorts of YJ and other Jeep kind of stuff. So, I'm glad you made it, and I'll see you in the next video. Thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe down on the bottom, and of course give us a like if you like what you saw.
Yeah.